School administrators are making final schedule adjustments. Teachers are preparing their classrooms. Parents and students are eyeing the calendar with anticipation. Another school year is about to begin. Welcome to Education Matters, WHRO's ongoing series that looks at issues facing today's classrooms. Today's in-studio guest is Dr. John B. Gordon III, Superintendent of the Suffolk Public Schools. He was recently recognized as Virginia Superintendent of the Year. He'll discuss his path to statewide recognition, the initiative Suffolk Public Schools has undertaken during his tenure, and his advice for parents preparing their children for a successful school year. And we're taking your calls on Education Matters right after this news break from NPR and the WHRO Newsroom. Good afternoon and welcome to Education Matters. I'm Barry Graham. Our in-studio guest today is Dr. John B. Gordon III, Superintendent of the Suffolk Public Schools. And a note of transparency, Suffolk Public Schools is a stakeholder in HRETA, which holds the license for the WHRO stations. We're taking your calls today at 440-2665, also 1-800-940-2240. Dr. John Gordon, his resume reads like an encyclopedia for education: elementary school teacher, senior high school teacher, basketball coach, dean of students, principal, front office administrator, college professor, and now recognized as the statewide superintendent by the Virginia Association of School Superintendents. The association said he is a passionate leader who brings great enthusiasm and energy to his role. Dr. Gordon is a proven advocate for children. He works each day to ensure that every student has the best educational environment in which to learn and grow. Essentially, your colleagues are saying, job well done. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's look at your journey to this achievement. What do you think really stood out as far as what's going on with the Suffolk Public Schools?
Yeah, I think everything really does start at the regional level, where your colleagues around you that you partner with many times actually understand some of the trials and tribulations that we go through. So even though, as an example, all of us are partners with HRETA, many of us are partners with Governor School of the Arts, CSEP, et cetera, and you try to be as innovative as possible while trying to find ways to support your school division, but also ensuring, because especially for a lot of things that are going on in the world now, we have a lot of kids that are moving around. So once I became the Region 2 Superintendent of the Year, I knew that I had a 1 in 8 chance of becoming State Superintendent of the Year. Then it kind of got narrowed down to 2 once I got the call from Amy Griffin, the Deputy Executive Director for VAS. And then I had an interview with the VAS board, and there were some familiar faces on there, but they also asked me some tough questions. And I tried to be as clear and precise as possible, but also to let them know it's just another piece of the puzzle. You know, the accomplishments that you can win individually as a superintendent is one thing, but knowing that your school division is performing well, I think is always going to be the best. And that's what I try to champion each and every day.
Let's talk about the Suffolk Public Schools just for a moment, the specifics of the district. How many students, teachers, schools, and what is your start date for the division this year? It used to be everyone started on the same day across the state, but now This is just varied everywhere.
Yeah, we start August 24th, so 1 week from today. We have about 14,600 students, about 2,350 staff members, 21 schools. Our demographics are about 56% African American, 31% Caucasian, 15% special education, 7% biracial, and our fastest growing population is right around 6% for English language learners. And so we are the largest locality per square miles in all of Virginia, right around 432. And so I kind of look at Suffolk as being broken up into 3 parts based on our high school feeder patterns, where the Kings Fork area is your traditional, more downtown area. Suffolk was combined with Nansemond County back in the day, which is part of the reason why our footprint is so large. The southern and western part, the Lakeland High School area, it's a little more rural. And the Nansemond borough, the northern part of Suffolk, is probably more, I don't want to say metropolis, but probably more like a strong suburbia. It kind of reminds me a lot of the Short Pump area in Richmond and where I'm from. I really compare it a lot to that when I'm asking to describe it to my friends back home.
And you have phenomenal growth going on there in Suffolk. You look out at the Harbor View area, which is just exploding as far as development. So I'm sure down the road you have to take that into consideration as far as students, numbers, where they're going to go to school.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strong discussion is the word I'm going to use when it comes to overall functional capacity versus building capacity. And you're right, Northern Suffolk, Harbor View, that's actually where I live. The entire city has over 100,000 people. And when I got here, I think we were like in the low 90s. So it kind of just shows you how much in 7 years of how the area is growing. And so we have a couple of projects going on right now, doing an expansion project at Northern Shores Elementary School to add much needed classrooms. We are getting ready to announce the site location for a new Elephants Fork Elementary School, which is going to hold 800 students. And we just had our grand opening of John F. Kennedy Middle School for 800 students. I'm a big believer in replacing schools. If you do everything right with a school facility, it'll last about 50 years. But that means you also have to check every, preventative maintenance box, which sometimes doesn't happen for budget reasons. And I don't like having mobile units. We've had some mobile units that have actually been around for 20 years. And what a lot of people don't understand is setting up those mobile units is not cheap. I mean, we're talking about 125 to 150,000. And those aren't even the ones that include restrooms. But there's also a security concern for me because kids have to go back and forth inside and outside of the school. We have our key cards and keyless entries. We have adult supervision. We have safety, security, and support specialists, S3s as we call them, that monitor the area, are always in the halls or out there at recess. But anytime you don't have your kids within 4 square walls is something that's been a goal of mine. And luckily, my school board has been very supportive. I know that sometimes our city councils have conflicting priorities because they have other things they have to be able to buy, but making sure that you keep your schools straight and have a great infrastructure actually is the number one reason why families move to your city.
Absolutely. School divisions, test scores, things like that, facilities, we all know that people eyeball this when they're moving into an area. They will even talk, hey, which division has the better schools and has the better plan.
Yeah, definitely. And we're lucky. I mean, I cannot wait till these test scores become public because we did really well this year. Really, really well. We were 100% accredited last year. I had 2 schools that were distinguished last year. We've increased that number significantly. We had a couple of schools that were off track. I don't think we're going to have any this year, but I don't want to speak too soon until the state releases that information next month. But that's just, definitely I want to commend our principals, commend our students, commend our families. It really shows you what the partnership is all about. And Suffolk Public Schools has been fully accredited several times within my tenure, which I think is also part of the reason why I was strongly considered for that, State Superintendent of the Year award. But we can actually point to the innovation. We can point to the improvements in infrastructure. We can point to the fact that I wanted to do things that were different. And, putting turf fields in for all of our athletic facilities, starting a new Center for Performing and Production Arts based on the past partnership that we had with Pharrell Williams, trying to teach our kids that you could actually make more money behind the camera than you can in front of it. But just trying to find different pathways. And our theme for this year is the path to achievement, just to find different methods to make sure that our kids are going to be actively involved. Because if they are actively involved in school, classroom management goes down, which means the student achievement goes up.
We're taking your calls today with Dr. John B. Gordon. He is the superintendent of the Suffolk City Schools. 440-2665, 800-940-2240. Let's talk a little bit. You mentioned just a moment ago about the Center for Performing and Production Arts at Lakeland High School. How has that really impacted the division? Is this an academy that the students have to apply for? Exactly how does this work?
Yeah, that's one of our 4 specialty centers that we have. Lakeland actually has 2 there because we also have the biomedical program through Project Lead the Way. This was kind of a brainstorm that we had from several of my past board members, Ms. Larita Mayo, Dr. Brooks Buck, and one of the things we looked at is what else can we do, since I'm a big believer in fine and performing arts, right? We have excellent bands. We get blue ribbon status when it comes to them getting the highest rating of superior when they have their orchestra competitions, band competitions, chorus competitions. But I also want to get the kids to understand there's so much talent in Hampton Roads. So what else can I do to make things a little bit different? And we take about 50 kids per year in the cohort. Each year, we try to add on new pathways for them to follow, if it's technical theater, if it's performing arts. Our group actually redid the score for the movie Nosferatu. which got us a lot of good publicity. And I have one of our students last year that actually, I think she got over, $2-3 million worth of scholarships. I have one, Miss Thompson. I'm not going to say her first name because I don't want to spoil it for her, who I actually believe is going to be on American Idol one day. I mean, the talent that we have in the city of Suffolk. And part of the reason why I wanted to really reinforce the production part, because a lot of other school divisions have performing arts specialty centers, but no one, to our knowledge at the time, had a production side. And having the pathway so that you're in front of and behind the camera, then when you watch the kids collaborate, it's so special. And then the creativity that we put into it, we did a 7-figure investment into Lakeland High School's auditorium, because I'm going to have this outstanding program and not have the facility to support it. So we kind of call it like the Kennedy Center of Suffolk. Great lighting, great acoustics, the panels that are in there. And we're going to try to imitate some of that with Nansemond River in a future capital improvement project pretty soon.
So many elements go into something like this. It's not merely hey, let's start this program for performing arts. Just what you mentioned, things you have to take into consideration. What about the stage they'll be on? It's so many different elements have to come together. And also another initiative that I was very intrigued with, the STEM Academy at Booker T. Washington Elementary, which is the only elementary lab school in the state. And then you expand it this coming school year into 2 middle, if I'm correct.
That's exactly correct. And so, Governor Youngkin had the whole lab school initiative. And when we looked at the data, everybody was just doing a lab school with high schools because of the higher education partnership. And ODU is our partner. They partnered with several of the school divisions here in Region 2 that also may have lab schools. But again, we wanted to be unique. So we put it at Booker T. Washington because we were already doing a lot of good work when it comes to STEM. Past partnerships that we had with 21st Cent Ed, many of our STEM camps that we were doing over the summer, it just made a lot of sense. And I wanted to put it at Booker T because they actually were my smallest elementary school. So I knew I had the room, again, coming back to that capacity piece, in order to be able to have 120 additional students to go there. So it's 20 kids per grade level, random lottery, basically it's first come, first serve basis. We went through some specific professional learning to do that. And last year was the first year of it. And the scores at Booker T jumped tremendously because not only was it because of the STEM Academy, but we also instituted some of those different new methods of learning by doing in our other classes as well. So I already had outstanding Project Lead the Way programs at the high school level. I previously mentioned biomedical at Lakeland, but we also have engineering at Nansemond River. So I saw a gap at the middle school level. And with us building this new John F. Kennedy Middle School, I knew I had the space, the classroom type, these maker spaces to be able to do some things with STEM there. So we decided we wanted to have the program there, about 60 kids, but we also wanted to do it at Kings Fork Middle School. Dr. Foster had a lab space there that he wanted to totally reinvent. Some outdated equipment and things of that nature, and partnering with our Director of Career and Technical Education, Dr. Andre Skinner, working with teaching and learning under Dr. Akima Harper and curriculum instruction from Dr. Leitner, we came up with this new model. And we're waiting to get the logo back from Project Lead the Way, so I hope they kind of move pretty quickly on that so we can start our branding components. But having these 60 kids that actually focus on robotics, focusing on coding, and then trying to find ways similar to what we did with the STEM Academy at Booker T. Washington, where you're actually implementing these new instructional methodologies, right? The curriculum doesn't change, but how it's actually being taught does. So it worked very well at Booker T. Now we're trying to get the kids, because we had to get some permission to have some additional courses from Project Lead the Way. This is going to be a 2-year phase-in model at the middle school level. Introduce the courses in year 1, reinforce the new methodology in year 2. And I know a byproduct is not only going to be an increase in student achievement scores, but the overall creativity. The main reason why we're focused in on this STEM model, and I think we are the only K-12 STEM model in Virginia, is because I'm seeing where the jobs are. I'm seeing, more importantly, the job vacancies. So when we see, the Amazon warehouses are popping up, our partnership, as I mentioned, that we had with 21st Cent Ed, they showed the data how all these robotics and STEM jobs are going unfilled. And then what was more important to me was kids can be 18, 19 years old coming out and making $80,000 and $90,000 fresh out of high school with these certifications, knowing that you have the skill set for these coding and just doing some things differently. not only are we building for the future, but we're also building for the right now.
And by doing this, students can really enter into this track in elementary and follow it all the way through. With the implementation of the middle school program now, they can enter in the elementary and follow it all the way through their high school career.
100%. And so to me, I kind of have broken this down into 3 segments, right? Where your elementary school is really supposed to be about career exploration, right? It's different from us when we were there. I want to be a fireman or a lawyer or a doctor. Or for me, I knew I was going to the NBA. Bad knees kind of changed all that. Once you get to the middle school level, it's more about career identification. Okay, let's narrow this focus down. Let's start to do some research. What type of certifications do you have to have? What educational credentials do you have to have? How long do you have to go to school? What is the starting salary? And then once you get to the high school level, it's about career specialization. We're going to try to get you on the proper pathway, right? I don't want to use the word track. Pathway where you have options. But the goal is to be able to graduate high school with as many credentials as possible. That includes the internships sometimes we do in-house through our STAR program, but also through what we call our community leaders. We don't call them community partners. We call them leaders because they're leading our kids into their future, right? All those 3 different things. So by the time they graduate, either they may have an associate's degree, or at least they're going to be a step ahead of the others in the workforce that are coming out at the same time, which we believe gives our kids an advantage.
It's Education Matters with Suffolk City School Superintendent Dr. John B. Gordon. Once again, we're taking your calls at 440-2665, 800-940-2240, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. It's Education Matters here on 89.5. I'm Barry Graham, and we are talking with Dr. John B. Gordon, Superintendent of the Suffolk Public Schools. And again, your calls at 440-2665, 800-940-2240. Dr. Gordon, you mentioned a little bit earlier in our conversation that based on data, which should be coming out very soon as far as last year's SOL scores, but the scores that I have from 2024, 2025, Suffolk Public Schools designated as fully accredited under the Virginia Department of Education's new accreditation and accountability framework. 5 elementary schools were designated as off track, which was this new designation that came out under Governor Youngkin, meaning lower than expected mastery rates in some core subjects. What are the plans? And I know you have a plan to get these schools on track.
Yeah. And so, in year 1, it's like interesting because everyone had to make an adjustment because we were just so used to having the SOL scores determining everything. But now it's different. You also have chronic absenteeism, which plays a 10% rate for each elementary, middle, and high. So, I don't want to call it controversial, but I'm increasing the overall accountability there too. We're actually going to implement attendance failures in Suffolk Public Schools this year. And this happens when a student actually misses more than 10% of the school year. So we have 171 days, they miss 17 days. You're considered an attendance failure regardless of what your scores may be. Now, I'm not just going to put it out there and not give you an opportunity to do some makeup time. So we still will count 3 hours if you go to a before or after school tutoring. We'll count 3 hours if you attend a Saturday academy. We're going to have at least 4 of those each 9 weeks just to give those kids an opportunity to make up the seat time because we don't have 180 school days, so we have to find ways to actually count the hours. And the Virginia Department of Education has been extremely clear on if you're not physically in the building, you're still considered absent. Now, a lot of our school community and probably the school communities all over the state say or believe that if I write a note, then my child should be good. No, that note actually turns into an excused absence, which only means you get to do your makeup work. And so those 5 schools that were off track last year, kind of getting back to the point of your question, they missed it total by 2.31 points. So it's just 1 kid here, 2 kids there would have made the difference. We are expecting to have 0 schools that are off track this year. And I'm expecting from our distinguished schools to go from 2 to maybe 6 or 7 based on what the data is saying. So right now, the Department of Education released our data to us. We're kind of reviewing it, cleaning it up, making sure that there aren't any errors because there's, it's year 2 of the system. But getting folks to understand the importance of growth, the scores are one thing, attendance is another thing, as well as how your different reporting groups perform. If it's special education students, English language learner students, your different ethnic groups, they all have to have thresholds to perform well. And so our admin team, the monitoring that occurs from our chief of schools, Dr. Stonette Bird, we now have created a leadership dashboard that serves as predictors. So now our schools can actually watch all of their data in real time as it's being uploaded. And then when we're looking at our dashboard at the end of the year, we know exactly how many kids need to pass the test. We know exactly what the attendance rate is. We know exactly who to identify for additional support. So kind of developing that proactive approach, I think, is part of the reason why you're going to see a jump in our student achievement, accreditation, and accountability data based on 25-26.
We've got a call who come in, John from Suffolk. John, thanks for calling here on Education Matters. You're on the air.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I want to congratulate Dr. Gordon on his individual award, certainly. I wanted to just throw out something that I'm a historian, I guess you'd say amateur historian. And I've always felt of all the Hampton-Roads cities, Suffolk is probably the most underutilized as far as telling their historical story. They've done it, but I think there's a whole lot more to be done. I was wondering if Dr. Young has ever thought about possibly utilizing some of the school resources that we have to come together with the public and tell the historical story of Suffolk.
You know, that's a great question, John. As a former history teacher, I'm right along with you, because one of the things I always take a look at is how can we celebrate the past and use that as a way to have our kids learn about the background as they prepare for the future. So not sure if you saw, but during our 250-year America celebration, we highlighted several things throughout the entire year that not only told the background and history of America, but also how it tied into Suffolk. We also are really deliberate about, highlighting the work from Colonel Fred Cherry, not only having the middle school named after it, but to get everyone to understand the historical context of his importance, not only in Suffolk history, but also Virginia history. And lastly, just to kind of wrap this part up, our partnership that we have with the Nansemond River Warrior Tribe tells everything. From the geographic battles to us having conversations about making sure that we're preserving their history. I'm sure you saw that for a lot of school communities at the high school and college level, or just all throughout K through 12, how there was a lot of discussion about changing Native American mascots and nicknames based on some of those depictions. Well, we work right along with the Nansemond River Warrior Tribe when it comes to the actual design and look of our mascot. We wanted to make sure that we not only got their permission, but made sure that we kind of gave all what I like to call the props to it that was necessary. And so when you take a look at some of the things that we've done in the past, when we were scanning QR codes, we kind of created our own Pokemon Go, where different areas around the city, we had some summer activities where the kids would use their phones, scan the QR code. It would tell you something major or historical that may have happened on that street or in that area. Then they kind of had to report it back to us. Katrina Carey, our coordinator of history and social sciences, did a great job of that. But we're always looking for more ways to show all the great history, all the great traditions that's happened in the city of Suffolk. And I definitely appreciate your suggestion.
We just completed here a year-long series on the semi-quincentennial stories of the revolution, in Hampton Roads, and we had several that focused in on Suffolk. And indeed, as a former social studies teacher, both of us could not have been more excited about sharing that type of history. Thank you for the call, and let's look at there as far as school accreditation. Mm-hmm. I mean, what are some of the overall strategies used in ensuring that the schools are hitting these benchmarks?
Yeah, I think that one of the first things is you have to develop comprehensive school support plans that not only are transparent, but also shows that there's some goalposts along the way. And one of the things that we've done, and I think it's still a challenge, is to try to find ways for any assessment that a student is taking. Not only is that supposed to help to drive instruction, but it's also supposed to ensure that we're doing what we need to do when it comes to Tier 1 instruction. And what I mean is about 85% of your kids are supposed to be able to learn something the first time it happens. But if you heard me mention, I have a 15% special education population. They may need more support. I have a 6 to 7% English language learner population. Our ELL kids actually did better than a lot of other our reporting groups with the language barrier. You just have to be able to know that you need more time. Those students need more time because They know the answer, but they have to be able to process it from their native language into English. And so the professional learning that you put in place is going to be key. The monitoring that you have to ensure that teachers are following our pacing guides and curriculum maps. I'm not sure if a lot of people understand this, but Barry, you have some knowledge because you're a former teacher. We get the question every now and then, what do you guys do in the summer? And we're like, we're doing a little bit of everything. We're doing a little bit of everything. The month of July is where the pacing guides and curriculum maps are being created. That's on the instructional side, while on the other side, we're working on the infrastructure. We're fixing things, replacing things, repairing stuff. I mean, it's just nonstop. And sometimes we have to even have those conversations with our teachers. I don't need you coming into this building on August 1st because these floors aren't done. And so just little things that you want to be able to do. We have to put our CSSPs, those comprehensive school support plans, they're on the website so that the public can review them. Then you want to ensure that you're also sending home proper resources so that our parents can be on the same page as us at home, right? The expectations when it comes to grading, we don't give as much homework as we did, right? From the days when I was a student, even from the days when I was a teacher. But what other reinforcement activities can be done so the kids can do some things on the self-pace, and then the parent has the ability to be able to check and see if what they're doing matches the same strategies that the teacher's doing in the classroom. And I think the last part of it is just the overall partnership between the teachers and the parents. I mean, that's so special in Suffolk. And some of it's because of some folks are still teaching the kids of the ones that they taught 20 years ago when the other folks were parents. Some of it's because people are related. But it's also because of the overall buy-in I think our school community understands. You know, I have a Facebook Live coming up this Friday at 3 because I always try to go and meet the community where they are. And Facebook is like, there's so many different Facebook groups, it's hard to keep up with. But I go on there so they can hear directly from me what the expectations are. Here's going to be the focus. This school, take a look at their CSSPs. They need to improve their scores in science. Science was an area for the entire school division that dropped a couple of points, while the other 3 went up. So that's going to be one of our focuses, and you're going to hear us talk about some different activities, some different things that we've purchased so that you can work on it in school, and then it carries over to home. And then you try to have some incentives for kids to continue to try to work on their education when they're outside of school as well.
I've often said that summer is actually when so many of the people who put the work inside school systems, that's when it goes into overdrive. That's when you really start preparing. I was on a system-wide curriculum redevelopment team. That was my summer, working on that curriculum and redeveloping it. We have a call from Linda in Suffolk. Linda, thanks for calling Education Matters. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Dr. Gordon. You've already mentioned it. I had just said how important parents play a role in all of the opportunities and things that you have out there in Suffolk Public School. My middle son graduated in 98, and my youngest graduated in 2006 from Nansemond River. But I just know how important parents play. It's crucial for them to send their children to school every day, help them with their homework, encourage, and show up to PTA, show up to different meetings and things, because it's a partnership. We're both working together to get our children where they need to be in this world, and that's needed so much now more than ever before. But I'm excited. When my children were back there, I think it was Joyce Trump was superintendent of schools, and then it was Dr. Milton Liverman. In graduation at Nansemond River, it was Thomas McLemore was the principal. So much has changed, and I'm so excited for what you're doing, and I'm proud of you for what you're doing in Suffolk.
Linda, you just made me smile. Barry and them can tell you right here in the studio, you just made me smile tremendously.
We're all smiling.
You mentioned some great names here. Joyce Trump was actually one of the first people to send me a congratulatory card when I won Region Superintendent of the Year. And she and I were on some groups together for All District Reads, our partnership that we have there, and just knowing that we have that legacy. If you ever visit the school administration office, because I'm a history guy, I have a picture of every superintendent on the wall and their tenure. And you're right, from Joyce Trump to Milton Liverman to Darren Whitney to myself, just to name a few. It's good that people can understand why we're continuing to build those things. And with you having 2 of your students, with Mr. McLemore at Nansemond River High School, Dr. Sean Green, who opened up Colonel Fred Cherry Middle School, he is the principal there now, and he knew the feeder pattern. And he also had some experience as an assistant principal from Kings Fork. So it just made so much sense to me to give them that opportunity to lead, that warrior nation over there in Nansemond River, who, I think they've created a dynasty with their state championships in indoor track. The basketball team just came back to the state tournament for the first time in years. And Nansemond River is also our school that has been distinguished the first 2 years of this new accountability system. So that red and black is great. And I think you're going to see some great things that are coming out of the school this year.
I always said to parents during the open houses, the one thing I can tell you is stay involved.
That's right.
Stay involved in your child's education. At the slightest thought that you need me, call me. So, Linda, thank you for the call. It's been 5 years since a study deemed 6 Suffolk public schools to be in poor condition, 3 elementary and 3 middles, and the school division said significant progress has been made toward that. What's the status of the replacement or even the updating of these buildings?
Yeah, I wish I could do more. I mean, our city has a $35 million debt threshold. I know a lot of it's tied to ensuring that they don't want to lose their AAA bond rating, and sometimes we've used cash to do some things. But I'll give you just a great example. It cost $74.6 million to rebuild John F. Kennedy Middle School. The city of Suffolk allocated $53 million. My team wrote a grant for $15 million that we won from the school construction grant from the Commonwealth of Virginia, and then we always got to keep kids first. We gave up $6.5 million for the rebuild of the Human Resources Building, which was supposed to be our new central office to make up the difference. Now we're looking at Elephants Fork Elementary School to be about $61 million. And here's the key. I think it was 10 years ago now, in 2016, we built Colonel Fred Cherry and Florence Bowser, 2 schools for that same price that it costs for one today. So inflation has crept up really when it comes down to the cost of steel, making sure you can get things in place. So I'm excited that JFK is done. I'm excited that Northern Shores, their expansion project, should be done next year. This year right now. We'll be breaking ground on Elephants Fork. And then we really got to look at, since Linda just talked about it, Nansemond River High School. I mean, Nansemond River and Lakeland are the exact same building, just in case people did not know that. One of them's blue and Carolina blue, the other one's red and black. But the capacity of the school is right around 1,600. And I have 1,775 students at Nansemond River. So we have teachers that are being just troopers, teaching mobile, being on the stage. I mean, it's just not enough space. And so we need to do an expansion project there to probably bring in about 20 classrooms. We got the plan already laid out to kind of knock down the wall, go out the driver's ed classrooms, go out the gymnasium, onto the practice field. Also, I would like to put an auxiliary gym in there. Wrestling program is phenomenal there, so we got to be able to support that because they actually were practicing off-site at the old Driver Elementary Gymnasium. Kind of want to be able to have some things under one roof. So in an ideal world, each design project is 6 to 9 months. Construction is 26 to 28 months. Once you get to the end of construction, the design for the next project should occur. Like there should not be any overlap. So when you're looking at it, we're talking about 36 to 37 months for a full school construction project to occur. And sometimes we have gaps. And you can tell now that each gap, all that does is increase the cost. These are some of the things you'll be hearing us talk about. Our school board actually votes on their capital improvement recommendations on September 10th, and then we send them to the city on September 11th. So I will be lobbying for months and years to come because we're building so many new neighborhoods that the school division infrastructure must keep up.
We're taking your calls. It's Education Matters with Dr. John B. Gordon at 440-2665, 800-940-2240, and we'll be right back. It's Education Matters. I'm Barry Graham, joined by Suffolk Public Schools Superintendent Dr. John B. Gordon. You can join the conversation at 440-2665, 800-940-2240. And Stephen from Norfolk, thanks for calling Education Matters.
Hi, how are you? I've got 2 grandsons in the Suffolk schools system, so very interested in what you have to say. 2-parter question. What do you think is one of the biggest challenges facing public schools today? And secondly, what do you think the biggest misconception is people have about public school education?
Oh, Stephen, I love your questions because they're so well connected. I think the biggest challenge facing public schools today is people understanding that operating a public school costs a lot of money. And you really have to be able to customize what our kids need as well as what our staff needs in order to make it successful. Gone are the days of having 25 desks, 5 rows, 5 desks in each row. Those days are gone. You want to have your classrooms to be mobile. You want to have your classrooms have a lot of noise going on. And the teacher now serves more as a facilitator. Unfortunately, with you being a grandfather and me being a father, we sometimes always want to see schools the same way it was when we were students. Well, I have a news flash for everybody. School is a lot harder these days. And a lot of it deals with the exposure that kids have, but at the same time, it's also about what the expectations are because we've increased the rigor. I can remember it was a big deal when I was in 8th grade, and I was one of 9 8th graders that were going to take Algebra 1. And this is 1986, 87. Like, huge deal. Had to get parent permission and stuff like that. Now I have 7th graders taking Algebra 1, even some 6th graders. And you had to find ways to add more courses so you can get the kids everything that they desire. I think one of the biggest things also for the second part of your question when it comes to one of the misperceptions of public school is understanding that public school is still the best option out there. Regardless of what anybody says, I'm not going to criticize anyone that does homeschool or anyone that does private school because parents have the right to make the decisions that are best for your kid. But there is nothing like a public school setting because it's a direct reflection of how the world is, right? Students from different backgrounds, different religious, backgrounds, different socioeconomic status, and it helps to get them to see what it's going to be like once you get to college. And I think, or once you even go into the workforce, because there's a large component of the social capabilities that are tied to public school. So, I'm biased not only because I'm the superintendent, but both of my parents were public educators. So I've been told how education opens up the door for so many people. And then once you get to high school, you can kind of see that there's a fork in the road. Once you graduate high school, some people go off into the workforce. Some people are going, to the military, the enlistment piece, and some people go to college. That's our whole 3E framework. But what you do with that opportunity is to me, is so important. I used to laugh when I was graduating from UVA and I was 22 years old, and I would come back home and visit, and I got some of my friends that's doing the same stuff that they were doing at 16 or 17 years old. Like, they never matured. They never matriculated and grew up. And unfortunately, you see some of that happening too much with today's generation who just don't understand. You have to be able to continue to grow in your life, both personally, eventually professionally. And I think the public school is going to be the best pathway for you to do that.
Stephen, thank you so much for the call. And something I have repeatedly said, Dr. Gordon, is the fact that students today, they learn differently than when you and I were schooled. Textbook-driven instruction it's simply something from our era. Kids today learn differently. They have different methods of learning and have so much other distraction at time.
You're 100% right. And, I was a huge supporter of the cell phone ban, as people like to call it, because of that distraction. I mean, I watched my daughter come home from school, and after she finishes her homework, she's on the phone for the next 2 hours. I think it also impacts your vision, So when you mentioned textbooks, Barry, our textbook adoption model is pretty simple, where 75% of our model goes towards online resources and the curriculum that's implemented into the Chromebook. But we still have 25% of our hard copies, and that's not just for special education students or whatever. That's because you have to be able to still have that group that learns better if they can touch it. Right? Learns better if they can see it. So being able to customize the instructional model, being able to have various techniques, that's one of the biggest challenges I'm talking about, where you have to have different strategies to use. Like, one of the things that we always push to our teachers is that making sure that not every test is multiple choice. Some testing to be project-based learning, some testing to be presentation, some testing to be short essay. Like, give each kid an opportunity to tell you the way that they can show their mastery better, instead of just making it, super easy for the staff member. And sometimes it creates a little bit more work for the staff member up front, but the results of the student achievement at the end definitely show you that it's worth it.
We're starting the school year here, and we hear a lot about learning loss. Research showing that students lose lose over the months of the summer. They're out for about 10 weeks. They can lose upwards of 3 months in math, 1.5 months in reading. These gaps are really very pronounced in younger learners and also in underserved communities, and it will widen the achievement gap, widens even further. How can you address parents as far as learning loss and getting the school year started? So many teachers thinking perhaps you start the year trying to catch students up. Mm-hmm. How do we best address learning loss?
Yeah, learning loss wasn't even a term until COVID. It's so interesting, but it's true. And a lot of it's going to be based on what are the kids participating in, what are they doing in that 9 to 10 week time frame. And so for us, we have what we call summer bridge activities, where a first grader could be introduced to second grade information, third to fourth grade information. And then we kind of begin to reinforce that some. Once the school year starts. And that's what your bell ringers, your daily warm-ups are really all about. How can we not only see where the kid is when they first start, it's easier to kind of judge that with a reading level, but just overall their first couple of weeks of school, trying to see where can I start them off to see what skills and support they need. School years are 36 weeks, right? But realistically, we were asking our teachers to be able to get through all the material in 28. Because you always want to be able to have 1 or 2 weeks of remediation, not including the 1 week of checking for understanding that happens like the first, 5 to 9 days of school, because it's 9 this year. And then you begin to test. So one of the things that we are making a conscious effort of this year is, SOLs is supposed to be the last 2 weeks of school, but depending on how your schedule works for the subject, you're still going to have some days at the end of the school year that are kind of quote unquote open. So how can we introduce our students to those activities? And then over the summer, we will have trivia questions. We will have gift cards that we were giving away, just different things for the engagement. And now that we have this new Suffolk library that was built in downtown, we're working on this partnership with them that I can't share too much information about. That's going to kind of have some reading challenges and stuff. Just little things to keep the kids engaged, and then also being very deliberate with the camps and summer offerings that you have as well.
One of the real problem areas nationally is a decline in reading scores. Mm-hmm. For 4th, 8th, and 12th graders, 2024 scores were lower than in 2022 and even below pre-pandemic back in 2019 levels. So the gap between top and bottom readers has truly widened. First, what do you think is driving this decline? And also, of course, the other side, how do schools and parents address a decline in reading? We all know one of the things, and you mentioned it a moment ago, cell phones.
Yes.
That's I know that is part of the cause. But are there any specific programs that Suffolk is using to encourage reading?
Yeah, our All District Reads program, special shout out to Mr. Gary Anderson that we've had. We were one of the leaders here in the state in doing that, where all kids grades K through 5 read the same book. And I have different leaders, including myself, that kind of read it on YouTube, introduce the characters. I love doing it because I get to play the different voices and stuff too. But specifically, I think the biggest concern is kids don't read for pleasure anymore. Like many times, I'm not taking shots at audiobooks, but many times they'd rather listen to it than actually read it. And you mentioned cell phones, where the voice to text and things of that nature, those types of advancements in technology have actually lowered literacy. Because how many times now is a kid typing something out and the autocorrect spells it the right way for them, And it's sad because we always want to be able to advance. Technology is there to actually make our lives easier and more efficient. But it's still the human component behind it that actually creates the technology. And that's something that we've been trying to reinforce with a lot of our STEM work. So the decline in literacy to me has been all about reading for pleasure. This is where the teachers, staff members, school divisions, superintendents have to find out what the kid is interested in. If we can use that as the background for why our kids should read, that active engagement is going to go up. Because for me, I'm reading about Star Wars, right? I'm reading about the NBA. I'm reading about my favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to be on top of it just because of what the subject is. Now, I'm going to use this Star Wars component or comparison to look at the sentence structure, to find ways to look at, okay, why was this chosen? Is this a persuasive essay? Is it trying to convince people to join the Republic versus sticking with the Empire? You have to be able to find things that the kids are interested in and use that as the foundation to increase the literacy. Doing that you know it's working when you see the kids actually teaching each other and not just waiting on the teacher.
Final opportunity. We're taking your calls. It's Education Matters with Suffolk Public School Superintendent Dr. John B. Gordon. 440-2665, 800-940-2240. Starting the new school year, what advice would you give to parents to ensure this successful school year?
Have that conversation today, 1 week before school year starts, about the routine. Like humans, I'm a psychology major. We need the routine. So don't wait till Sunday night, August 23rd, my birthday, by the way, to have your kid decide it's time to go to bed earlier. Start that now and then discuss with them, okay, are you doing grab and go breakfast? Suffolk Public Schools, like many of our other school divisions, we have the free breakfast when you get there. What is going to be your window to do your homework and your reinforcement activities? What's going to be your window for the social time? Like, you almost need to develop a daily, weekly, and monthly calendar. And it's going to be adjusted based on, when the holidays are. But it's really about that routine. That's number one. Number two, you got to build that positive relationship with the teacher. And I can guarantee you the teacher's going to build that positive relationship with you, so that when Mr. Graham calls history teacher because John Gordon is a little off these last couple of days, that's not the first time that you've heard from me. Like, we've already built that rapport where we've asked our teachers in the first 2 weeks of school, contact every parent. And in contacting every parent, this also means getting that baseline on how you should be contacted. Is it Class Dojo? Is it emails? Is it phone calls? A text message? Whatever works best for the parent, right? And have those conversations, right? Being able to get that strong foundation. And then on the other side, parents, I got to be honest and ask you this. When the teachers do call, ask some pointed questions. Find out the why. Some of our parents, some of our guardians, some of us as adults, we can have trauma from things that happened to us when we were in school. So please don't answer the phone mad. Listen to them first, and I believe that if the parents and the teachers work together, you can nip some of that negative behavior in the bud right from day one.
Absolutely. I can tell you, anytime I talk to a parent, 99% of those conversations were thank you. Thank you for calling and alerting me there was a problem. Now, you've authored several articles and publications, including the book, The Teacher's Lounge, The Real Role of Educators in Your Schools. Tell me the message it sends.
Yeah, so the Teacher's Lounge is like a semi-autobiography where in each chapter, I take on a different role: the role of the parent, the role of the student, the role of the teacher, community member, the role of the coach. Since I spent 10 years coaching basketball, that was key. But because you just asked me, my new book actually comes out on August 25th. Education Navigation. It's a strategy guide for navigating the politics of education, which I think is the first of its kind. It took me about a year to write it. Did a lot of research about the different state, national, and federal acts that came on. And regardless of the terminology is changing, how you still need to stay focused on the kids. It's teaching all educators how to stay purple, because things have gotten so political these days that you don't want to get kind of tied up into that, because you're still trying to keep kids first. So at the end of each chapter, I have activities, reflections, different things to kind of list out. Pre-sales just started. The book officially comes out on August 25th, and I'm going to have a special on the 21st to the 23rd where you can get the ebooks for a nice discounted rate. I had my first book signing party this past Saturday. Thank you for all of those of you all that attended. The Virginia Association of School Superintendents just bought copies of my book for all first year and second year superintendents, because I think it would be a great guide for them, because that political storm can change pretty quickly, especially depending on what's happening with your school boards, who are the bosses of the superintendents. But it's not just superintendents that we're dealing with. This is principals, this is teachers, this is parents, this is students. Everybody should read this book, because I can guarantee you there's a chapter in there for everyone.
I'm beginning to think you do not sleep. And in addition to running a school division, you're also this author. Final question for you, and that would be lessons learned as a superintendent.
Oh, man. So I think my biggest lesson is I consider myself to be a very efficient guy, but I don't ever want to be impulsive. And during my first couple of years, I would respond to emails quickly. And a couple of those came back to bite me, right? A couple of those came back to bite me. I think the second piece was I couldn't understand why people didn't always keep kids first in what they were doing. And so sometimes choices were made for adults that actually damaged students. And I would get upset about that. And I would be, I'm very passionate in everything I do, especially when it comes to kids, because they're still learning. Us as adults, we're supposed to know. It wasn't always just different political views. Sometimes it was racial views that, we deal with in the city of Suffolk, and I'm sure everywhere else. But I couldn't understand why people couldn't see the kid as the end user. So my lessons learned has been about being a little bit more patient. Now that I have the experience, having 7 years under my belt, having a wider lens on why people see the things that they do, keeping that why at the forefront, I think it's made me not only a better person, but it's definitely made me a better leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, congratulations, Statewide Superintendent of the Year, and we're very proud of you, and just best wishes for a very successful school year and continued career. Continue doing what you're doing. Public education needs those people who are passionate. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
Our thanks to Dr. John B. Gordon, Superintendent of Suffolk Public Schools. You can find information about the Suffolk Public Schools at spsk.net. Suffolk Public Schools is a stakeholder in Heretta, which holds the license for the WHRO stations. I'm Barry Graham, host and producer of the program. Our audio engineer is Jordan Christie, and Connor Worley answered our phones. Our theme music is an original composition by Todd Washburn. Special thanks to WHRO CEO Bert Schmidt, WHRO Vice President for Content Heather Mazzoni, and Senior Director of Audio Content and Audience Strategy Chuck Dowd. This and previous Education Matter programs can be found on demand at whro.org. As always, thank you so much for joining us, because education matters.